So the only foods specifically mentioned as being served at the first Thanksgiving are Indian corn, wild turkey, waterfowl, and venison. But where did the other foods come from? Well, real quick here, if you want to learn more about Thanksgiving type stuff, you can check out our videos on Canadian Thanksgiving and the Pilgrims. Just getting that out of the way real quick. Okay, so first and foremost, what is this thing? Well, that's a cornucopia from the Latin cornu, which means horn, and copia, which means abundance. So it basically means horn of plenty. Baskets like these were used to carry fruit, often while it was being picked, hence why there's typically fruit coming out of them. And this connection to the harvest is their connection to Thanksgiving. But what about the food? Well, we're getting there. Pump your brakes there, Pocahontas. We're starting with cranberry sauce. The first known recipe for cranberry sauce appeared in the 1796 edition of American Cookery by Amelia Simmons. This was also the first known cookbook authored by an American. Cranberry sauce wasn't eaten very often, mostly because of how expensive sugar was, but once that got cheaper, all bets were off. Commercially available cranberry sauce was introduced in 1912 by cranberry growers Marcus Uran and Elizabeth Lee in Hanson, Massachusetts. They're actually kind of big on cranberry farming there. It's also where Ocean Spray got started. But this debuted in stores in 1941, which was when it became much more popular for Thanksgiving. Oh, and it takes about 200 cranberries to make one of those bad boys. And though cranberry sauce didn't become part of typical Thanksgiving foods until the 1940s, cranberries were often used in stuffing. Yep, stuffing or dressing goes way back, farther than we're sure of, because stuffing an animal with seasonings and some form of bread or cereal has been around for quite some time. The earliest documented evidence we have is from the Roman cookbook Apicius de Re Conquinaria, which has recipes for stuffed chicken, hare, pig, and dormouse. These stuffings also included vegetables, herbs, spices, nuts, and spelt, which is a form of wheat that was popular in Europe, but not so much anymore. Their recipes also included organ meat like liver and or brains. Mac and cheese, or macaroni and cheese if you want to be technical about it, is what it sounds like, macaroni and cheese. More specifically, it's macaroni pasta, typically elbow style, in a Béchamel sauce to which cheese, historically Parmesan, but in modern day more often than not cheddar, is added to create a Mornay sauce. Some people also add breadcrumbs on the top or put meat into it. A lot of us grew up eating mac and cheese with cut up hot dogs inside, and typically you then bake it. So, interesting thing here, macaroni comes from the Italian macaroni, which is used in reference to pretty much any long pasta, but the Italian roots back to ancient Greek, macaria, or this in actual ancient Greek, which was a barley broth that was eaten to commemorate the dead, and the root of that word was macares, or this, which means blessed dead. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that. Versions of mac and cheese have existed for as long as pasta and cheese, but we can thank Thomas Jefferson for introducing the states to it in the late 1700s, after he tried it while in Paris. Also, Canada is responsible for roughly a quarter of all mac and cheese sold worldwide. And next up, we've got sweet potatoes. Yes, those are marshmallows on top, and no, sweet potatoes are not the same as yams. We know that eating sweet potatoes goes back at least 5,000 years in Central America, and it's from there that French and Spanish colonists brought the sweet potato, which was rather popular, to the present-day American South. And from there, it became a staple of Southern cuisine. And yes, there was something else that helped sweet potatoes become more popular in the South.
Let's face it, some of us miss it. Show me slavery!
Yeah, that'd be slavery. See, sweet potatoes were a lot like the yams that African slaves had eaten back in Africa, so they were popular among the slaves. Nowadays, we typically eat sweet potatoes on Thanksgiving as either a more or less casserole, where they're mixed with brown sugar or maple syrup, and yeah, topped with marshmallows, or as a pie. Sweet potato pie is basically the southern version of pumpkin pie. And then we've got mashed potatoes. Now, we don't know how far back mashed potatoes years go probably back to the Inca who used potatoes to feed their workforce. We do know that the dish existed as early as 1747 because a recipe for them appeared in Hannah Glass's The Art of Cookery that year. By the way, the recipe back then was pretty much the same recipe a lot of people still use. Potatoes, milk, butter, salt, and pepper. And I personally add sour cream and ranch dressing mix, but you know, that's just me. Oh, and cheese. A lot of us add cheese. Next, we have pecan pie. Yeah, it's pecan, not pecan, which many believe was created by the French in New Orleans not long after its founding in 1718 when French colonists were introduced to the pecan by local natives. Yeah, we know native tribes ate pecans as far back as 8,000 years ago, but we don't think they ate them in pie form. Chicken and dumplings. Yeah, some people eat these for Thanksgiving, don't knock it, which is basically chicken, thick chicken broth, and dumplings. More or less, they're just wads of dough. Some people add carrot, celery, or peas. Some people take out the dumplings, put it in a pie crust, and make chicken pot pie, or they replace the dumplings with large noodles along the lines of the Pennsylvania Dutch bot boy. It's believed that chicken and dumplings came to be in the southern or midwestern United States sometime in the early to mid 1800s. Hey, real quick, don't forget to like and share the video, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to help support us like these good folks here at the bottom of the screen, or you like the shirt that I'm wearing, there are links to our Patreon and merch store down in the description. And finally, not everybody eats these for Thanksgiving, but I do, so yeah, and that's baked beans. They shouldn't be an odd Thanksgiving food because their origins are Native American. Yep, native tribes mixed beans, maple syrup, and bear fat together, much like nowadays where some still use maple syrup, but here in the US it's typically brown sugar or molasses, and instead of bear fat, it's pork fat and more often than not, whole pieces of bacon. And considering the first apple pie recipe goes back to England in the 1300s, baked beans are more American than apple pie.